Hello everyone and welcome back. So last time we went through both the main screen and the basic game itself, the main gameplay blueprints. Now we're going to finish off the game instance and see how it all matches and works together. So the first thing we're going to go through is the save game event. So we have a button that in our main menu widget that will trigger the save game state. Saving game will do a couple of things. It will first have to load the game from the current slot that was instantiated at the beginning when we press play and we're playing. And remember, this is the game instance, so it's always the same instance and it's always the same game slot until we change it. We then cast into it. If we fail to cast for any reason, we decided to add a fail to cast print string. Otherwise, we're going to get the current level name. We're also going to cast to our first person character, and we're going to get the player character. You can change this to whatever getter you want depending on your game. And then we're going to get the character stats. Now remember, the basic logic was whatever the character interacts with and so forth happens to the character, and if we need to load that information elsewhere, we're going to do it through the game instance. So we get the player character, and we're going to get a few things. The character stats, which is a function we've already made before. And also we're going to get its main actor transform. And finally, we're going to cast to our save data. I say cast, but we're going to modify the struct that is here, save data, and add all of these informations in one go. So we're going to set members, the character stats as a character stats struct from the character, the last level that we saved at, which will return the main level we're at now. And finally, the save transform that we're getting at the current moment. We don't really want to get this transform unless we save the game anyways. Finally, we're going to cast into our save game, and in it, we're going to simply set the save data struct as we've mentioned before. So all in all, very easy way to save and very clean. So now all the data that we needed to collect is set in the game instance, and then it's set as solid or permanent data in the save file. Once we do that, don't forget, always save your game to slot. So get the same slot and you can use the same object to save into it. That's basically how you do a clean save. This compared to let's get every single data point for the character stats and then just move pins around. That is exceedingly tedious and not efficient at all. This is much more efficient. There may be a better way. If you know a better way, please let us know in the comments below and we can check it out, make a video out of it. We'll make sure to give you the credit. Finally, we're going to look at the death events. So the first one is continue game. When we die, basically we want to continue playing the game. So we're going to want to go back to the previous save state. So we're going to create a loading screen first, and then we're just going to use the loading game with the current game slot that we've already predetermined here. So if we go back to it, it will need a game slot. Does the save game exist? Yada, yada, yada. It does exist. We're going to load from it. And then basically the last save state we have, we're going to load from it. We're already having a create loading screen again, but the function itself checks for too many loading screens and will basically cancel out the previous one. So we're good. And then it will just go into the save data and load everything as needed, open the level. Then the game mode, once the level is opened, will do the rest. So we're pretty good. Now let's say you died and you want to go back to the main menu for whatever reason. You decide maybe you want to rage quit or use a different save file. Load main menu, create a loading screen again, and simply open the level called main menu. Since none of the data has been committed yet, or at least if you go to the main menu and you open a new save file, the data that has already been committed here will disappear. And finally, the death event itself. So when you die, there will be a trigger that goes to the game instance telling it, hey, you died. What are we supposed to do? The first thing we're going to do is unpossess the target. I'm pretty sure you've seen these funky death events other people had in their tutorials where the character died and they could still walk around lying on the floor, which is quite funny, to be honest. Afterwards, we're going to create the death widget, the death screen. We're going to add it to the viewport. We're going to show our mouse cursor, and we're going to set the input to UI only. And then from there, we're going to let the player decide what to do with the death widget. Now let's take a look at the death widget. So here is the death widget. Basically very Dark Soulsy. You died, continue your main screen. You only have two options. You can choose more options if you want. You can add anything you want to it. Again, vertical box encompasses the buttons. The buttons have text. If we go to the graph, we have an on-click event and an on-click event for both buttons. And we have an animation that blends in. So when you die, it actually just blends in that you're gonna appear as dead. So the first thing that we're gonna check is if you click continue, what happens. So first off, you're gonna remove the widget from the parent. We're gonna cast into the game instance and continue game as we've seen earlier. And finally, if you want to go back to the main screen, we're going to, again, cast into the game instance and go back to the main screen after removing this. Now the animation might be a little bit more interesting. So let's take a quick look at it. So when we go to designer view, here you have an animation pane. You can double click on it and then you will have a timeline and you can decide what to do in the timeline. You can add rotations to objects, you can make things fade in, fade out, so on and so forth. Here we have a render opacity starting from 0 and going to 1 in 1 second. So basically when you die, over the course of 1 second, this screen will appear and fade in like that. To add it in, simply add the animation, and then on the animation you can add tracks, and then you can add different folders, different widgets, different things. From what we're seeing here, you can make only a button fade in while the black screen appears instantly. You can make it all appear. It's up to you. Once you have it added, you can add a subtrack here. And then basically you can do render opacity, the visibility, the transform, you can move stuff around. It's really fun to play with, and I highly recommend that you use this tool for all your animation needs in your widgets rather than hard coding them in the graph editor. The reason for that is that this is more optimized. For the scores, it's not anything special. We have health, cash, and then a bunch of strings here. The strings itself, the text is linked to a function. Same thing for the other guy. When we go to the functions, cache text, let's return a node. We're going to cast to the player character and get the coin count. That's for the cache, and for the health, we're going to do the same thing, but for health. There is no other graph in it. Now, some people will say that you can do all of this through events, as when you collect something, then you throw an event, and then the event will update this accordingly. Yes, you can. It is much better. At this level right now that we're at, where we're just doing only 2 variables, this incurs minimal resources. If you have, for instance, about 40 different stats at the same time being loaded, then it'd probably be best to change it. And finally, we have the pause menu. So in the pause menu, we have a sort of border, faded out border, a bit darker, so that we can kind of give the idea that we're faded, we're paused. We have a continue save and main screen button, again, both in vertical boxes. All of these buttons have their own function, again, linked to the game instance. So click on this, talk to the game instance does that. Click this, talk to the game instance does that. Click this, talk to the game instance does that. And that pretty much wraps it up for the widgets. So again, let's just take a look at everything that's happening and let's go break it down detail by detail. Delete. There's a new game here. This is a widget that was loaded on the game mode as soon as we enter the game. The game instance is also loaded since the game instance is the game. Press start. No save file exists. Enter a name. The widget appears. We're going to write a name. We can click cancel or accept. Cancel just removes this window. Nothing is committed. If we click accept, we accept this and it is committed as a new save file. We can then press start. If we press start, it will check, does the game file exist? Yes, no. The game file does exist. It does not have a saved location, so it will default back to the first level and the first location input as default. We have the default values for health and cash. We look around, nothing's happening. I can shoot, move. There's a coin here. I pick it up. Cash goes 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 up. Portal here. I enter. Loading screen appears. I load the next level. The data is passed from the player character onto the game instance. We load the next level as the portal has indicated to the game instance with the requirements that is in the game portal. Once we're in the next level, game mode instantiates everything that we need, and everything is updated back from the game instance into our character. There's a bunch of floating things here. If I want to save, I can either continue save game or main screen. Again, the darkened background to show that we're paused. We're going to save game. We're going to go back to the main screen. Press start again. It checks if we have a save game. We do. We appear there. Press continue. All of this is removed. If I get a crossbone, I died. I get the screen. Continue. I loaded from the last save. I died. Main screen. Back here. Start. Back to where I was saved. I'm going to go back here. Begin play initiates. We check around. There's no more coins than the ones that we have collected because they are already part of the GUID array. And that pretty much wraps it up for this tutorial. So this is just a first person view. You can do this in third person. The blueprints and everything are pretty much the same. Thank you very much for being part of this series. It was our first series. Please leave some comments below to let us know what you think about it. Could it have been shorter or longer? Are there things that we went over too fast that you would like for us to go over? And yeah, just let us know if there's any multi-part series that you'd be interested in. Project files should be available in the YouTube description, as this is the final video. Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe, and if you feel generous, please donate on our Patreon. We really would appreciate that. Thank you.